Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. I hope that you've all been continuing to look after yourselves and each other. Let me start the show by saying a heartfelt thank you to all of you. Thank you for listening to my show, engaging with it and with me. Thank you for all of your support and feedback over the past few years. It's bittersweet episode for me this week, as this is going to be the last episode of Excuse Me, I Have Something to Say for quite a while. As mentioned in last week's episode, I've made the tough decision to put Excuse Me to rest indefinitely. The past 3 years working on the podcast have been equal parts rewarding and challenging. It has been an absolute honor and privilege to have created a platform which has been able to help people share their stories and experiences with each other. Excuse Me started as a place for me to find my voice and process some complicated emotions after losing my friend Flynn to cancer in 2019. I challenged myself to start and engage in more meaningful conversations because life is hard and there's a lot that we don't talk about. I think that Flynn would be proud of this show and the ways in which we've been able to help people connect by sharing their life experiences, creating conversations, and more importantly, by having fun. Since the conception of the show, the world has changed a lot. My world has changed a lot. I started planning the show in the middle of 2019, and I wanted to release the first episodes in the first half of 2020. Then the pandemic hit and I was stood down from my job, which presented me with a lot more time to get things moving. And at a time when a lot of people's schedules had suddenly freed up and everybody seemed to have something to say. We aired our first full episode on the 8th of April, 2020, an episode which focused on understanding the new norm of social distancing. Called upon a good friend, Jacqueline Webb, as our first guest. In season one, we explored a lot of life, from the history of feminism with Rochelle Lindquist, living with anxiety with Leroy, also known as Where is Leroy, embracing your identity with my partner, Benny Cole, the effects of addiction with Shayna Chester. And we wrapped up season one with a special episode looking after your mental health during the holidays, with a focus on LGBTQ mental health with my guest, Mark Camilleri. During season one, we were also invited to join the podcasting network Lip Media. This was huge for me. I was so excited as Lip Media hosted one of my favorite podcasts, The Gays Are Revolting. And I fast realized how lovely and how helpful and generous the entire podcasting community is. It was really cool to know that the content I was creating had been deemed good enough to join a network and be monetized through that network. Throughout making this show, one of the most rewarding benefits for me was creating and reinforcing connections with people in my life. Creating this show has allowed me to become closer with people in my life, and I now have stronger and deeper connections, deeper respect, and stronger relationships with incredible people who I just adore. I never knew that that would happen, and it has been an amazing surprise from this whole process. By the time season two aired its first episode on the 7th of April 2021, a lot of life had happened. As a global community, we were still weathering the unknown with this pandemic. Benny and I had planned our entire wedding, and we were only weeks away from saying I do. I'd lost a job that I loved due to the pandemic, and I was only 4 weeks into a brand new role. I was beginning to feel the stresses around me a lot more. I knew the podcast had an audience and that the content we were producing was reaching people and touching them and entertaining them. But between all the life challenges and changes that had happened and the pressure that I was putting on myself to, I guess, get content out, along with having a full time job, trying to navigate the first year of marriage, I began to feel like I was failing. I had definitely had some lessons to learn about self-care, mindfulness, and generally looking after myself, which ironically, episode 2 of season 2 was all about mindfulness with the incredible Rachel Hayek, who was just so giving with her time. In season 2, we also explored naturism as we got naked with Brandon Jones from Get Naked Australia, veganism with my amazing vegan friends, Daniel and Rochelle. I shared my coming out story with all of you. We spoke about how to find your confidence with David Mudge. We explored disordered eating with nutritionist Sarah Y from the Good Food Clinic. The history of witches for Halloween with Amy Lucevero. How to Train Your Dog with Andy Schoolidge, and so much more. During season 2, Lit Media folded. And although that was really sad, I also found a new home for Excuse Me at That's Not Canon Productions. The team at TNC further proved how amazing and how collaborative and how generous the podcasting community is. And I was grateful for the opportunity to remain on a network, on a great network. The final guest on season 2 marked our first celebrity guest. We had actor, author, activist, and Jennifer Coolidge enthusiast, Mr. Harry Cook, who had starred in movies alongside Sam Neill and Gina Davis. And Harry was just so fun and generous with his time and his conversation. It was a great way to wrap up season 2. On the 6th of April, 2022, Excuse Me came back with season 3. We had a strong premiere episode featuring Nurse Jess, a pediatric ICU nurse who was sharing her experience of being a nurse during a pandemic. Jess shared her firsthand and very honest account of what our frontline workers were actually going through. And to date, this episode remains my favorite episode that I ever made of Excuse Me. Listening to Jess just being so open and so generous with her experience, it really felt like at this point, Excuse Me was doing exactly what it was designed to do: educate, inspire, and create empathetic connections through real life stories and conversations. So a huge, huge thank you to Nurse Jess and all of our guests for being so willing to share their stories with us. Season 3 featured some great conversations with inspiring people. We spoke about the 7-year cycles with Australian businesswoman, inspiring human, amazing woman, Terry Hawkins. We discussed recently living with dyslexia with Che Turner, who didn't get diagnosed with his dyslexia till he was, in his 40s. We even got to have a really great chat with Queensland musician Sahara Beck, who I personally adore. I'm a big fan of Sahara's. So that was just an amazing experience. We also saw some returning guests in season 3 coming back to get in on more of the action and more fun. We had Rochelle Lindquist, who came back for our body positivity episode and our Halloween special. Amy Lucevero returned to talk about self-care, and drag queen fan favorite Miss Maya Crofone stopped by to talk about the history of drag. Throughout seasons 2 and seasons 3 of Excuse Me, though, my personal life was incredibly challenging. For a time there with work, I was overseeing 2 sites, one in Brisbane and one on the Gold Coast. So that meant I was traveling a lot. My husband was going through a lot with his own work stresses, which were negatively impacting us both of our mental health and our quality of life as well. They say that the first year of marriage is the hardest. I'm going to say for us, it's been the first 2 years, but thankfully we have each other and a ridiculous amount of love. Also, more recently, the cost of living crisis has started to affect us, and that's been really stressful. And I had been beginning to kind of feel like a failure as a human, as a husband, as an adult. Mentally, I have been in a very dark place. And to be honest, I'm not quite out of that dark place yet, but I'm working on it. We'll get there. A few months ago, I started my second podcast, and it was around this time I decided to take a break from Excuse Me when the season ended in season 3. My second podcast is The Wind Up with Maya Crofone. It's a weekly recap podcast where Maya and I review the latest episodes of Drag Race. So it's pretty fun and pretty lighthearted. And we have a few wines while we do it. To date, we have recapped season 2 of Drag Race Down Under, and we're currently winding up Canada's Drag Race Canada versus the World. And fast approaching us now is RuPaul's Drag Race season 15. It's been a nice change of pace to create something that's a little bit more lighthearted. But between a full-time job, trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good friend, trying to be a good son, trying to be a good stepdad, trying to be a good uncle, along with the time that it takes out of my life to record and edit 2 podcasts, including audio content and YouTube visual content, I'm finding that I've been spreading myself a little bit too thin lately, and I need to refocus on myself, my wellness, my mental health, and also prepare my plans for the future. This has been an incredible journey for me. Becoming a podcaster and a content creator has crept into my inner being. It lives inside of me now, rent free, and it has fused itself to my soul and my story. And I love it. I can't get enough. But I would have never have found this passion and this part of me if it wasn't for all of you who have listened, liked, commented, shared, followed the show, all of you who have been a part of this little podcast, which has big ideas, to all of the incredible, inspiring, talented, and unique people who have shared their stories, their experiences, their opinions, and their time as guests on the show. I'm forever grateful and indebted to all of you. Your kindness, your honesty, and your candor has been so greatly appreciated. I thank you. I applaud all of you. And I love you all. And to once again, you guys, the listeners, the viewers, the supporters of this passion project of mine, thank you. Thank you for tuning in every time I release an episode and giving up your time to spend it listening to me and my guests. If it wasn't for all of you, I would have given up on this a long, long time ago. Unknowingly, you guys have pushed me to keep pushing myself and to keep trying to create more engaging, fun, and important conversations and content for all of you. There would be no show to share if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you for coming on this ride with me. It's been fun, right? Now, although, excuse me, I have something to say, maybe taking an indefinite break for now, I still have some big plans that I'm working on that I would love for all of you to be a part of with me. We're still creating and producing The Wind Up, which is currently doing great on YouTube with new episodes dropping every Friday. So make sure you go and watch. And I have a couple of new show ideas that I'm working on and I'm hoping to bring to you guys in 2023. You may even see some familiar faces or hear some familiar voices. I'm also building up Excuse Me Productions. Excuse Me Productions will be a podcasting and creative network that educates, inspires, and creates meaningful connections between the content creators, and their communities. I'm hoping Excuse Me Productions can elevate the voices of the queer community, female voices, and other marginalized communities too. It's an ambitious goal, but it is one that I really do believe in. So if you're out there and you're listening, if you want to be a part of something new and you have something to say, no matter how big or how small you think it might be, your voice matters. You matter. what you have to say matters. And if you have an idea, but you don't know how or where to start, get in touch. Let's build something together. Thank you all again for the last 3 years of stories, experiences, conversations, connections. It has been a really, really fun, sometimes very stressful, rewarding, exciting, unique experience putting together this show for you guys, coming up with content that I think is important, finding guests that I think you all would benefit greatly from hearing their stories, thinking about things that exciting things that we might not know about. The history episodes that we've done have been great fun. It has been an incredible 3 years, and I'm really kind of sad to close the door a little bit on this chapter, but I'm also really excited for what is to come. Stay safe, everybody. Look after yourselves, look after each other. Happy New Year. By the time this comes out, it's probably going to be close to the new year. I hope you've all had a great 2022, and I hope you have an amazing 2023. I am Shaun Phillip Naylor. This has been, excuse me, I have something to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.